Hi everyone, Epigenic Gaming here, and today I'll be discussing the upcoming changes to Shadow Priest that have been announced in the hotfixes on September the 23rd, which will be implemented on the 28th of September. Now in the background you can see some highlights of our half-drunk Vault of the Wardens +4 run from last night to keep you from wandering off. So let's dive right into the changes. We'll first talk about the nerfs, then the buffs, and we'll be closing with my personal opinion of them. So by far the biggest nerf we got was to Mass Hysteria. This artifact trait is now capped at 100%. It used to be that every stack you got while in Void Form would increase the ticking damage of your dot by an additional % per stack of Void Form. This meant that at 50 stacks your Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch ticks will deal 50% extra damage, and at 100 stacks you'd be dealing 100% extra damage per tick. The trick, however, was that even though you don't get higher than 100 stacks towards your haste increase, the actual buff would keep increasing, meaning your dots would be ticking for insane amounts whenever you were using Surrender to Madness to push the limits of Void Form. So again, as an example, you could be using Surrender to Madness and going into Void Form for, let's say, 2.5–3 minutes long, and at that point your dots should be doing, or could be doing, upwards of about 300% additional damage at the very end of a fight. Now this power of Mass Hysteria became very obvious after the first week of raiding, where some priests, including myself, were able to hit over 400k DPS on Nightmare Dragons, and a single occasion of a priest actually doing 500k damage on Xaviers in the Emerald Nightmare. So Blizzard decided to bring us back in line with other classes through this nerf. The second portion of our nerfs was to both Dispersion and our artifact ability Void Torrent. It used to be that whenever one of these abilities was used, your insanity would stop dropping, but your actual stacks of Void Form would keep increasing. Now from the 28th onward, the increase of Void Form stacks will be halted as well as your insanity drain, meaning that both of these abilities will now exclusively be used to wait for your cooldowns to get back up, instead of a last-ditch effort of increasing your Void Form stacks to at the latest possible time to get a higher lingering insanity buff. Now it's not all bad though, since we also got a small buff to Mindseer. Yay, whoop-de-fucking-do. We now deal 50% extra damage per Mindseer tick, and our insanity generation is also increased by 50% per tick. Now, all in all, we got hit pretty hard, and I really disagree with pretty much everything they are changing about Shadow Priest. Will still be plenty viable, so no worries there. I just feel that first off, the changes to Mass Hysteria are way too hard in one go. I'd much rather see them capping it at, let's say, 200%, and if that still proves to be too powerful, put a cap at 150% till the balancing seems fair. The biggest mistake Blizzard made here is looking purely at damage capabilities. Sure, we do a ton of damage at Nightmare Dragons, for example. However, this is supposed to be a fight we excel at more than any other class, since it's about having multiple big targets that we could continuously keep our dots running on. Now, on the other hand, we could also take a look at Xaviers. There is a single occurrence where a priest was doing 500k damage, I believe. And sure, this damage is insane, but this is more due to us being able to first off use Surrender to Madness twice in this fight if you are lucky and put in the Dream phase, and in the Execute phase where there are dozens of tentacles up that we can just mindlessly spam Shadow Word Pain on. However, this is basically useless damage, since at this specific part of the fight it's all about burning Xaviers down himself before your raid dies, due to the ever increasing AoE damage coming in. So sure, you're doing 600k damage at that point, but is it useful? No, because 500k of that is basically going towards the tentacles, since you're just continuously spamming your dots on them instead of focusing on Xaviers, which you want to make sure dies before you die yourself. Now, secondly, I don't really understand the reasoning behind the changes to Dispersion and Void Torrent. Both changes don't seem interesting at all, and I highly doubt they will change our overall DPS significantly, so why change them at all if that isn't the problem? So lastly, let's take a look at the changes to the Mindseer. Now Mindseer is and has always been a complete joke, so this change was obviously made because Shadow Priests are having a bad time in Mythic Plus dungeons, where it's all about the passive AoE cleave, which is frankly just something we aren't designed to do. Even with the buff to Mindseer, it's still wrong to use it as a priority when our priorities are very different. The idea behind Mindseer just doesn't work. Blizzard can't make a channeled cast that has no thought to it do significant AoE damage, since it's just not right to have any class able to do this. So they upped the damage on a spell that does shit damage into a spell that will still do shit damage but slightly less worse, but increase a small portion of the insanity generation of it to make it look to be a viable option, which it's just not, since it's not one of our priorities. If you'll go into these Mythic Plus dungeons, you'll always first want to get your Shadow Word Pain and your Vampiric Touch up on targets which have significant HP, and just refresh those dots using Void Bolt. Now, if the targets, however, are very low HP, you just put Shadow Word Pain on them and you would have used Mind Sear anyway. However, the damage on it would have been very low, but that's okay, since we've always been doing that, and it's not something we should be changing, since there are other classes like Demon Hunters, Normal Hunters, Warriors, Enhancement Shamans, etc. that should be doing this job significantly better, because they are actually designed to do this and they have the better tools to deal with these situations. Now, this translated into them doing the same thing on, for example, 4 or 5 big ad targets. They had sufficient cleave to have like 400k DPS on these situations where our damage would fall short. Now, as a solution to it, I would have loved to see Shadow Crash being made a baseline ability. It's extremely simple as a solution. The ability is on a significant cooldown to be able to use regularly, however it's not spammable. The damage isn't amazing, nor is it lacking. You could even reduce the insanity generation of the ability as to not to make the spell used in a single target rotation. This would give us on par AoE damage through both our dots and Shadow Crash, without the drawback of outperforming classes that are meant to deal with the little adds in the extreme AoE scenarios, since they would just still be far more sufficient at it than Shadow Priest. So in conclusion, we've been hit pretty hard, and I don't stand behind these changes, not because they make Shadow Priest worse than they are right now, but because they are huge changes which haven't been thought out significantly, in my opinion, and they are purely based on faulty design views. So what are your opinions on the upcoming changes to Shadow Priest? Do you stand behind him, or do you think Blizzard should have made a different approach to changing our abilities? So leave a comment so we can discuss about this in the comment section, and I'll be sure to reply to as many people as I can. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and maybe even subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of my content. If you didn't, be sure to hit that dislike. Anyway, this has been Epigenic Gaming, and I'm out. Have a good one, and see ya.